Hello class and welcome to Chapter 6. So just moving right along throughout the semester. Well, if you remember, we just covered in Chapter 5 things about job-based internal structures, job-based ways to assign jobs and a way to look at how we look at jobs, our analysis, our evaluation. Well, now we're going to shift gears in Chapter 6 and focus less on the job and more about the person's skills, about their competencies, about would there any certifications, any formal education. This is how most people tend to view their relative worth on the job. I went to college. I graduated with a marketing degree. I worked a couple of marketing internships. I have certain skills. I have the ability to do certain things, and that's how we determine how the work is created. So that, and a lot of companies, especially a lot of bigger companies, will use this type of person-based analysis to determine how best to figure out the structure of our internal organization when it comes to comp and class. So let's dig into a little bit more about what that really means. We want to talk about skill-based structures. Basically, how do we link our pay to that which we have attained? And you see this quite commonly, especially with like degrees. If you just have a high school diploma and you want to have certain jobs, you know that in order to create the minimum qualifications and to be able to make the money that you want to make, maybe you have to go to college. So you get a bachelor's degree, and then you think, well, you know what? If I'm currently a marketing professional. But if I want to be the director of marketing or maybe a vice president of marketing, maybe I need to get an MBA or a PhD or something advanced so that I will have the skill set and the knowledge to be able to handle these more complex thoughts and structures. So the thought is the more knowledge I get, the more experience I get, I have created more skill, more value, and therefore the organization is willing to pay me more. And basically, you're basing it based on your self-worth. As I mentioned, the wage attaches to the person. So it's no longer kind of an objective, hey, we're just looking for somebody who can do the job. Now we're basing it on what you have attained. You have this knowledge, you have this education, you have a certification, you have on-the-job training, apprenticeships, anything along these lines, and you officially now have the skill base to do these jobs. And as I mentioned, as a job base is basically for employees to which they're assigned regardless of their skills. So you see that more on an assembly line where your job is to simply, let's say you're on a car assembly line. Your job is to put the tires on the car. That's your job. It doesn't matter, your skill set, your education, your background doesn't really matter. If you're able to put the cars on the tires on the car, you're doing the job you were hired to do. That's more job-based. But again, if you want to start designing the cars and designing, the specs and creating more energy efficient cars. Now these require more advanced skills and knowledge, and that's where the skill-based plan comes in, that Chapter 6 is really all about. Chapter 6, and we talk a lot also about this concept of competency-based structures, which basically will link whatever competencies you have, your knowledge, your skills, your abilities, your education, all this is linked to the organization through your competencies. And you take those and you design it based on the strategy that creates more workflow. And the reason why employees like it is it's fair. It's the most fair way to do things. So that the more education you earn, the more advanced degrees you get, the more certifications, the more on-the-job training, you're rewarded for that. You are able to not only do more advanced work, but you'll be compensated more. Not just maybe in pay, but in other areas like bonuses and stock option plans. And we'll talk about all that stuff later in the semester. But again, this motivates you and motivates employees to want to do a better job because you're actually seeing a direct link. Oh, if I get my MBA, then hey, I will be promoted to a manager job and I will be able to oversee the work of others. So instead of doing the job, I can now hire somebody to do that job and I oversee their work, and then I can focus more of my time on strategy and marketing and other types of things. So again, it's a much kind of fairer way to do things, and it's much more accepted by employees. And kind of summary for Chapter 6, if you can kind of see there's different contrasting approaches. You have job-based, skill-based, and competency-based. And again, this is something that I definitely want you to kind of learn, one for exam purposes, but also if you ever are in a position where you're designing compensation plans, or you're asked to advise on compensation, this is going to be one of the questions you as a professional will have to answer. How are you going to focus your employees? Are you going to work on their skills? Are you going to work on how they actually actually what competencies they gain. What are the pros and cons of each approaches? How do you actually go about procedures to acquire this information? So again, it's important to know the differences between job, skill, and competency-based approaches, because again, this is going to be what you're going to be asked to do a little bit in our group project, but also as well if you ever get out in the working world and you're doing this type of work. Hope you enjoyed Chapter 6, and we'll see you soon.